بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Today inshallah we'll talk about two surahs combined. Talk about both Al-Insan and Al-Mursalat. And the reason that I combine them is that they are paradoxes, meaning they both give an example of da'wah, but the examples of da'wah that they give are almost the opposite, or the two different ways of doing it. After Surah Al-Qiyamah yesterday explained to us, or gave us an example of da'wah that is based on addressing the intellect, addressing that higher function part of the human being, the conscience, and the ability to reason, and the insight that we have as humans, which is the best way to perform da'wah. So that's definitely the best way to go by. If people are convinced by something, if you speak to their upper or higher level of cognition, then you're definitely doing it the right way. But there are two other ways that also work for da'wah that are very meaningful, which is talking about reward, talking about the desire of pleasure, which is what Surat Al-Insan addresses, or warning from a punishment, which is what Surat Al-Mursalat does. And they do it in two distinguished and different ways. So Surat Al-Insan is a Makki surah, even though the common knowledge is that it's Madani, but it isn't. It's one of the Makki surahs. Everything in Juz' Tabarak, everything in the cluster of surahs from Al-Mulk to Al-Mursalat, all these surahs are Makki. All of them are early Makki actually, not even just Makki, but they're talking about the first 6 years of his bi'tha sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Surah Al-Insan starts by saying, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِّنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. It's making a statement in the form of a rhetorical question by saying, was there a time when the human being was not even something that was mentioned, meaning wasn't even a thought? No one even had an idea that the human being was a thing that was ever going to come? And the answer is, of course, yes, there was a time where we weren't a part of any equation that existed or was even projected to ever exist. And that's just reminding us that we are quite fragile, and we are not the center of the universe. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just giving us this life as an opportunity. It's a gift that He's giving us subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all of Surah Al-Insan is going to talk about reward and gifts. It talks about it in Jannah, but it starts by reminding us of the major one, which is the fact that you're here, the fact that you're alive. There was a time when you weren't. Not only were you and I not a thing, the whole race wasn't a thing. Like the concept of the human race wasn't even a thought that was processed. إنا خلقنا الإنسان من نطفة أمشاج نبتليه فجعلناه سميعا بصيرا إنا هديناه السبيل إما شاكرا وإما كفورا إنا أعتدنا للكافرين سلاسل وأغلالا وسعيرا إن الأبرار يشربون من كأس كان مزاجها كافورا. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, created the human being. Min amshaj, min particles that are very small, existing in the groins of the loins of a man and a woman. Nabtalihi, putting him to the test, the human being as a human grows within the womb of a lady, is put through a lot of tests before it's actually able to come out and be a being that is capable, sami'an, of hearing, and basira, and seeing. And then it talks about the fact, hadaynahu sabil, you were told, here's the two paths. You were guided to them. Here's what's right, here's what's wrong. If you do what's wrong, then what's waiting for you is punishment. If you do what's right, then what's waiting for you is pleasure, na'im. And he goes and he explains, كَانَ مِزَاجُهَا كَافُورًا عَيْنًا يَشْرَبُ بِهَا عِبَادُ اللَّهِ يُفَجِّرُونَهَا تَفْجِيرًا. And it starts explaining a little bit about the na'im of al-Jannah. What you're going to notice is that Surah Al-Insan, even though the focus is going to be talking about na'im, that is going to be reflection upon punishment Yawm al-Qiyamah. And when we talk about Surah Al-Mursalat in a moment, that the focus is on what's going on the punishment as a warning, there's also going to be in it reminder of the na'im and the pleasure in Jannah. Because you cannot perform da'wah in one way only. You have to perform da'wah in both ways. Meaning if you're going to emphasize the na'im, that you have to remind those who you're talking to about punishment. If you're going to emphasize punishment, you have to remind those of na'im. You can't. Basically, imagine it as a bird with two wings. If you cut one of them off, the bird can't fly. If you decide that suddenly I'm going to only talk about Jannah, I'm not going to talk about the Nar, then this bird won't go it's flapping with one wing, it's going to fall. And the same thing in the opposite, in the other way. If all you're going to talk about is Jahannam, then it's not going to make it. I'll tell you a story. So a very beautiful soul, Imam came to my village that I lived in, Sheikh Abul Qasim Rabbi Yahfadhu. Beautiful soul. This man was one of the most sensitive people I've ever met in my life. And all of his teaching was based on Jannah and Hubb and Na'im. Now, mind you, my village is a village of farmers. We live in the mountains. If you look at the hands and the feet of the people in the masjid, you know that they can easily, they'll knock you out if they give a salams that is a bit too heavy. These are people who have thick mustaches and they wake up every day at 5 o'clock and they're working in the fields. So as this poor guy is on the minbar week after week talking about Jannah and talking about Na'im, nothing's happening. He can't get to anybody. And I remember he almost lost hope in continuing to do this. So I remember I sat with him, I told him, Sheikh, he's one of my teachers, will you allow me to offer you just a piece of advice, if it's okay? Look, these people, this doesn't work for them. They don't listen to this. You have to tell them what's waiting in Jahannam for them. Now, if you get on the minbar and you do that, you'll see. So he said, all right, that's not my style, but I'll try it. And I remember he did a khutbah, and he talked about the description of an-nar, wallahi, 3 lines in Fajr the next morning. And he continued to have an impact on the village for years to come. Because everyone has a different key. We don't all respond to da'wah the same way. Addressing the intellect in Surah Al-Qiyamah is definitely the best of ways. But different people have require different flavors when you talk to them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Insan gives you the flavor of Na'im. And Surah Al-Mursalat talks about punishment. But both surahs will have an element of the opposite flavor within it. Because you can't afford only to talk about things in one way. You have to talk about both, but you can have an emphasis if it's more beneficial. So he continues subhanahu wa ta'ala describing those of high caliber. يوفون بالنذر ويخافون يوما كان شره مستطيرا ويطعمون الطعام على حبه مسكينا ويتيما وأسيرا إنما نطعمكم لوجه الله لا نريد منكم جزاء ولا شكورا إنا نخاف من ربنا يوما عبوسا قمطريرا فوقاهم الله شر ذلك اليوم ولقاهم نضرة وسرورا وجزاهم بما صبروا جنة وحريرا. And then the verses continue talking about Na'im al-Jannah. But it does describe these people. Those who yufuna bin nadhr, when they give their word, when they actually make an oath, or they sign a covenant, then they will see it through till the end. And they fear a day that has extreme evil in it. Again, a reminder of Jahannam. Again, in the surah. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, and they feed people. عَلَى حُبِّهِ means out of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They feed miskina wa yatima wa asira, the needy and the orphan and the one held in captive. And they tell them, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We're only feeding you for the sake of Allah. We don't want from you to thank us. We don't want from you to praise us. We need nothing from you. We're just doing it for the sake of God. Go on your way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to reward us. إِنَّا نَخَافُ مِنْ رَبِّنَا يَوْمًا عَبُوسًا قَمْطَرِيرًا. Indeed, we fear from Allah a day that is a frowning day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing Yawm al-Qiyamah as if it's a person. Abusan qamtarira, someone who's frowning, someone who's very mean, someone who is not kind. فَوَقَاهُمُ اللَّهُ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected them from the evil within that day. And He gave them the best of what is to come next with His Jannah. And then the verses begin to describe Jannah. مُتَّكِئِينَ فِيهَا عَلَى الْأَرَائِكِ لا يرون فيها شمسا ولا زمهريرا ودانية عليهم ظلالها وذللت قطوفها تذليلا. And the verses start to talk about those who are reclining in Jannah upon their beds or their sofas, and they're living within an environment where it's not too cold, it's not too cold, it's not too hot, it's not too cold, and the sun isn't burning, and it starts talking about the beauty of what you're going to see, and all the fruit is nearby, and then he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ ثَمَّ. It's not thumma. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ ثَمَّ رَأَيْتَ. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتَ ثَمَّ. Meaning if you see what's in front of you, if you were able to see what the people in Jannah at that moment were seeing, رَأَيْتَ نَعِيمًا وَمُلْكًا كَبِيرًا. You would have seen amazing amounts of pleasure and a huge sovereignty that is at your disposal. He describes عَالِيَهُمْ ثِيَابُ سُنْدُسٍ خُضْرٌ وَإِسْتَبْرَقٌ وَحُلُّوا أَسَاوِرَ مِنْ فِضَّةٍ وَسَقَاهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ شَرَابًا طَهُورًا. As they exist in Jannah, they are dressed with the best of, with silk and heavy silk and light silk. and they're wearing jewelry. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only offers them the most pure of drinks for them to drink in Jannah. ويسقون فيها كأسا كان مزاجها زنجبيلا عينا فيها تسمى سلسبيلا. And it continues to describe for you the liquids that are going to be mixed with the drinks that you're drinking. ويطوف عليهم ولدان مخلدون إذا حسبتهم إذا رأيتهم حسبتهم لؤلؤا منثورا. There are people, servants running around bringing you things to eat and bringing you things to drink. This is the description of Jannah. And they're told when they're in there, إِنَّ هَذَا كَانَ لَكُمْ جَزَاءً وَكَانَ سَعْيُكُمْ مَشْكُورًا. Indeed, this is a reward for you. And indeed, the sa'i, the effort that you put in your life is very much appreciated. This is for the tamam of the ni'mah. This is for your blessing in Jannah to be perfect, to be at the highest level. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to tell you that somehow you deserve this. That somehow you and I, or those who inshallah who are fortunate enough and blessed enough to go to Jannah, may Allah make us amongst them, say Ameen. If we go there, He's going to try and convince us that somehow we did something to deserve all of that. Because that's just so that you feel good about it. Because we know we didn't deserve any of this. We know it's way beyond us. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want to remind you that, oh, you're here, but you didn't really deserve it. No. That would take away from the pleasure. You would stop enjoying it as much. So He's going to tell you, no, إِنَّ هَذَا كَانَ لَكُمْ جَزَاءً. You deserve this. And your efforts in life were very much appreciated. We appreciate what you did. سَعْيُكُمْ مَشْكُورًا. What did He get from what we did? What benefit did reached Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from what we did? Nothing. But that is just so that your na'im, so your pleasure in Jannah is full. So you're not feeling guilty about getting something you didn't deserve. He's going to tell you you deserved it, even though you know you didn't. And I know we didn't. But that's what He'll say, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we don't dare disbelieve Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when He says you deserved it, we'll say, لَكَ الْحَمْدِ. لَكَ الْحَمْدِ. And that's what Surah Al-Insan talks about. And it continues to remind us at the end of it. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَاسْجُدْ لَهُ وَسَبِّحْهُ لَيْلًا طَوِيلًا. So if this is something you're looking forward to, if you're looking forward to exist in a place where it's just beauty that is surrounding you, that the environment that you're seeing around you is of such beauty, is of such grace, is of such magnificence that it's not even describable by Allah it's not even describable in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala left it without clear description, just told us basic stuff. If that's where you want to be, then listen to what He says at the end. Engage in remembrance of the name of your Lord. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ بُكْرَةً وَأَصِيلًا. In the morning and the evening. وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ. When it comes to nighttime, فَاسْجُدْ لَهُ. Make sure you find a moment and prostrate to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَسَبِّحْهُ. And exalt Him لَيْلًا طَوِيلًا. As long as you can during the night. إِنَّ هَؤُلَاءِ. The other group, يُحِبُّونَ الْعَاجِلَةِ. They're encompassed and they're preoccupied by what's happening right in front of them. They can't see beyond their noses. They don't see what's coming next. وَيَذَرُونَ وَرَاءَهُمْ يَوْمًا ثَقِيلًا نَحْنُ خَلَقْنَاهُمْ وَشَدَدْنَا أَسْرَهُمْ وَإِذَا شِئْنَا بَدَّلْنَا أَمْثَالَهُمْ تَبْدِيلًا إِنَّ هَذِهِ تَذْكِرَةٌ. Don't worry about those who refuse to see what's coming next. We created them. We gave them the strength that you see that they have, and we'll take it away. Just like it was granted to them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be taken away from them by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this surah is nothing more than a reminder for you. إِنَّ هَذِهِ تَذْكِرَةٌ فَمَنْ شَاءَ اتَّخَذَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. And those of you who have the will find your way to God. You will find your way to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has something prepared. It's prepared for you. That is your destiny. That's your qadr. Your qadr is to be there. That's your destiny. When you talk about, well, are we predestined? Do we make choices? Yeah, you're destined. You're predestined. But you're predestined to go there. Now, whether you fulfill that destiny or not is your choice. No one can force you to fulfill the destiny that you were created to fulfill. But that's the destiny. That's what's waiting. That is what is waiting. Now, whether you decide to make your way, find your way to that or not is going to be something you have to decide. Surah Al-Mursalat right after it gives da'wah in the opposite way. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا. Now quickly I'll explain what the meaning of these verses are, even though these are probably one of the most debated ayat in the Quran. Different scholars have different ways of looking at it. I take this position Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking oath, and everything He takes an oath by is always related to the surah. And He's explaining to us in this, He's taking an oath by wind. But here's the catch to these verses. وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ عُرْفًا, the winds that were sent one after the other in abundance with good. It has a lot of good. Urfa, there's a lot of good in it. And they're sent in abundance one after the other. فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ عَصْفًا وَالنَّاشِرَاتِ نَشْرًا. And one or two things they're going to do. Either they're going to come asifa, extremely strong, extremely forceful and cause harm, or they will come nashirati nashra, spreading a lot of khair, bringing rain and bringing khair and allowing people to live. Now, if the second one, which is the last one, when nashirati nashra, those one, فَالْفَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا. And when the goodness comes, it makes a difference. فَارِقَاتِ فَرْقًا, it leaves an impact. It leaves a difference. فَالْمُلْقِيَاتِ ذِكْرًا, it leaves you with something to remind you of what's coming next. It's a reminder. It serves as a reminder. عُذْرًا أَوْ نُذْرًا. Either a reminder that you will take, and it'll be udhr for you yawm al-qiyamah, meaning it will allow you to do the right, you'll do the right thing based on it, and you'll be able to justify your life yawm al-qiyamah, أو نذرا, or it'll serve as a warning because you didn't listen to it, and then you're stuck with the mistake that you made. The sequence of these verses as they talk about the wind is just reminding us of the following. Everything that is presented to you in life, you can use in one of two ways. Even the wind, when it comes, one of two things. Either it's going to be asifati asfa, or it's going to be nashirati nashra. One of two things. Nothing comes labeled, you label it. Things come to you, sometimes it will be good, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it will be udhra, sometimes it will be nudhra. And that's going to be your choice of how you're going to take what you're given and what you're going to do with it. And that's the beginning of Surah Al-Mursalat. And then to answer this qasam as he's making oath, subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالْمُرْسَلَاتِ فَالْعَاصِفَاتِ إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. Indeed, it's not even indeed, because innama is more exclusively. What you are promised is going to happen. As if to say, or is going to be reality. As if to say that everything else is not really a reality. Everything else is just, call it what you will. Call it what you want. The only reality that exists is that what you were promised by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yawm al-qiyamah is going to be there. It's going to happen 100%. Everything else is, take it with a grain of salt. Do what you want with it. إِنَّمَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. And the reason that he made those oaths is to say, well, here's a piece of information. مَا تُوعَدُونَ لَوَاقِعٌ. What your promise is going to be reality. Do with it what you may. This promise will either be udhr or nudhr. This promise will either cause asf one day or cause nashr. It's really up to you. This either will make a difference for al-fariqati. This will maybe mulqi dhikra, will leave a remembrance that will allow someone to be a better person. Or it won't. Or it won't. It's totally up to you. None of this is mandated by anyone. It's just is what's offered. And then he talks about فَإِذَا النُّجُومُ طُمِسَتْ وَإِذَا السَّمَاءُ فُرِجَتْ وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ نُسِفَتْ وَإِذَا الرُّسُلُ أُقِّتَتْ لِأَيِّ يَوْمٍ أُجِّلَتْ لِيَوْمِ الْفَصْلِ. On the day when the stars are going to be turned off, like as if they're candles. When the mountains are going to be destroyed, when the skies are going to be ripped into nothing, when the prophets are going to be told, wait your turn. When the prophets, the messengers, the rusul, uqitat, given a time, wait, you have to hold you accountable. We have to see, did you give this message the way you're supposed to? Did you follow what the verses at the beginning of the surah said? Did you bring it? Did you do all this or not? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order for Him to hold us accountable, He has to see, first of all, if the messengers He sent did their job or not. Yawm al-Qiyamah is probably the most difficult on the Rusul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because literally, the hisab of the human race depends on whether they did their job or not. Because if they didn't do their job, then what's waiting for them, what is the timing for it? The day where the difference will be clear. Fasl is when there's going to be a differentiation. When we're no longer mixed just as a group, we're going to start differentiating. This group is going to go this way, and then this group that shows something different will go this way. And then the surah performs for us the three basic methods of da'wah, or of talking about religion. When you talk about God, or you talk about religion, there are three basic sources for this discussion to come from, and then a fourth that is more based on a personal experience. But the three basic ones, number one, history. أَلَمْ نُهْلِكِ الْأَوَّلِينَ ثُمَّ نُتْبِعُهُمُ الْآخِرِينَ كَذَلِكَ نَفْعَلُ بِالْمُجْرِمِينَ. Did you not look at history? Did you not see what happened to the nations before you and how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with them? Some of them were punished, some of them weren't, some of them lived on. And that's what happens to those who refuse. The second one talks about life. The second way to talk about religion, first of all, we have to look at history. In history, has there been evidence of prophets and messengers, or is the Prophet ﷺ the only person who picked up a book and said this is from God? Or has it been the same story for every nation all across the world at times when people in South America and Africa did not communicate but still have the same basic ideas of people bringing books, talking about Allah, and talking about God Himself? So history is there. The second one, أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُم مِّن مَّاءٍ مَّهِينٍ فجعلناه في قرار مكين إلى قدر معلوم فقدرنا فنعم القادرون. Talking about life. How did life come about? Where did life come from? How did life just spontaneously begin? And if it did spontaneously begin like they say, then how did it turn into what we see it to be today? How suddenly does this race have the ability to actually conquer nature itself and bring it to its knees and change the way that nature functions and actually affect the environment that they're living in? No other creature can do this. Didn't you start from a small amount of water? Undignified water. It's not even water that's worth, it's worth nothing. But then it's put into a womb and it grows with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to turn into something that is breathing, thinking, speaking, hearing, and cognitively conscious. Then the third one is about the universe around us. The third way to talk about God, if you want to discuss these things with those who don't believe and perform da'wah, because that's what Surah Al-Mursalat is. It's a form of da'wah, but it's going to use a little bit of punishment as the reminder, as the main reminder. But you talk about history, you talk about life, you talk about the world. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ كِفَاتًا أَحْيَاءً وَأَمْوَاتًا وَجَعَلْنَا فِيهَا رَوَاسِيَ شَامِخَاتٍ وَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمْ مَاءً فُرَاتًا. You not look at the earth and the way that it's created and the mountains upon it and the valleys that you walk in and the water that runs within it. Do you not see the world? Did you not take a look at the globe that you're living in and the universe that surrounds you? Between each of these paragraphs, He says subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Right? Isn't that the most repeated verse in Surat Al-Mursalat? That is the most repeated verse in Surat Al-Mursalat. Every paragraph, just at the end of it, He says, وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Read Surat Al-Mursalat and feel the reinforcement of these words. And feel how He's reinforcing. What is waylun? Waylun, if you come from an Arabic home, you've heard this before from your parents many, many times. Ya waylak. This means you're looking for, your future does not look very good. It's a grim couple of hours to come. Waylun just means a warning, a serious warning. Waylun, serious warning. Yawma idin, regarding that day. Lil mukaththibin. There's a difference between kafir and mukaththib. They're not the same thing. Kafir is a disbeliever. We don't know why. Kafir means someone who disbelieves, and we do not know exactly what the reason is. It's the most generic term that exists. Al-Mukaththib is someone who looked at things. It seemed to this person that this is the right way, but they decided no. I'm going to go this way for some egocentric cause, for some reason that is only known to that person. But Mukaththib means that individual, when they assessed the actual situation, what seemed to them to be the right way to go by things is the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they said no. They refused. Kafir doesn't necessarily mean that. A kafir could be someone who just doesn't believe for any random reason. It wasn't presented to them properly. It wasn't presented to them properly, so they didn't believe. And mukaththib, no. It has to be someone who was presented properly. It seemed to them that this is the right way, but they said no anyways. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. So here's the problem for us. You and I already know what the right thing is. We already know what the right path is. We already know which path takes us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the moment that we stop walking that path, the moment that we stop committing to it and adhering to it, it's a form of takdeeb, even though it may not be verbal. Even though you may not be saying it with your tongue, but if your actions seem to be explaining that, actions speak louder than words ever will. Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah is not interested in what you have to say. Everyone Yawm al-Qiyamah comes with La ilaha illallah. Everyone. Every living human being on the Yawm al-Hashr standing there are screaming at the top of their lungs, if they're allowed, La ilaha illallah, but they're told to be quiet. فَلَا تَسْمَعُوا إِلَّا هَمْسًا. You're not allowed to raise your voice. But they come forcefully with the concept of La ilaha illallah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not interested in what you have to say that day. Let's open the book and see if your actions speak of La ilaha illallah or not. Let's see if I would guess that you believed in La ilaha illallah based on your actions. And if your actions don't seem to endorse La ilaha illallah, then your words mean very little Yawm al-Qiyamah, unfortunately. That's why وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Time and time again in the surah, repeating itself 9 times. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. Warning to those who come on that day and they disbelieved in this knowingly that it was the right thing, but they didn't do it anyways. انطلقوا إلى ما كنتم به تكذبون انطلقوا إلى ظل ذي 3 شعب لا ظليل ولا يغني من اللهب إنها ترمي بشرر كالقصر كأنه جمالة صفر. They're called upon Yawm al-Qiyamah, the ones who perform takdeeb. Go walk towards that same thing that you disbelieved all of your life in. Go take a look at it. Go to a place where there are 3 flames. You will find no shade there. You will find nothing to protect you from these flames. Jahannam throws a spark that is as big as a castle. A sharar, if you know the old, when you have a lighter and it doesn't work, you have a little spark coming out of it. The spark of Jahannam, wal-'iyadu billah, is as big as a castle. كَأَنَّهُ جِمَالَةٌ صُفْرٌ. Al-jimala is basically a caravan of camels. It's as big, it's as long as for the Arabs this was meaningful because a caravan of camels is yellow like a spark, and it's long. It's as long as a caravan of camels. كَأَنَّهُ وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. The surah continues and it talks about what is awaiting in Jahannam, wal-'iyadu billah. But at the end of it, it also reminds us of what's waiting in Jannah. إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي ظِلَالٍ وَعُيُونٍ وفواكه مما يشتهون كلوا واشربوا هنيئا بما كنتم تعملون إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين. Never in a surah of the Quran, never is da'wah complete if you talk about only one side of things. You have to talk about both. You're going to emphasize Jahannam, you have to remind them that those who have piety will find a place of great shade and a lot of water that is pure coming from the ground and fruit, everything that they wanted. And they were told, eat and drink, whatever you want, whatever you desire, take it, enjoy. This is indeed how we reward those who showed excellence. The verse right after it, كُلُوا وَتَمَتَّعُوا قَلِيلًا إِنَّكُمْ مُجْرِمُونَ. And then it turns back to them, مُكَذِّبِينَ again. In dunya, eat as much as you want, enjoy the dunya as much as you want. You are at fault for this. You're at fault, and Yawm al-Qiyamah we'll talk about it. وَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ. At the end of the surah he says subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَهُ يُؤْمِنُونَ. And if this is not something that you're going to accept and live by, then tell me, what exactly are you living by? Tell me what better narrative do you have? What better evidence do you possess for you to live or to believe in something alternative to this? فبأي حديث بعده يؤمنون. And the answer is لا حديث يا رب. لا حديث نؤمن به إلا حديثك. There's nothing to believe in besides what you said, Ya Allah. And that's the end of Juz' Tabarak. The 29th cluster is before the end cluster of surahs from Al-Mulk to Al-Mursalat. Talked about da'wah. It explained the 4 elements you need for da'wah. It talked about knowledge. It talked about ethics, it talked about relationship with God, and it talked about behavior. And it gave us 2 examples. An example that didn't really work for Nuh alayhi salam, even though he did everything right. An example that worked, even though the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in Surah Al-Jinn didn't even know that he was performing da'wah. And then it talked about the 2 principles that you're going to need for da'wah. You're going to need to have some part of it for yourself. Al-Muzammil and Qiyam al-Layl and Dhikr, that's for you, to fuel you, to strengthen you. Surah Al-Muddathir, how to carry yourself in front of people. And then the last 3 surahs are 3 examples of da'wah. One that speaks to the intellect in Surah Al-Qiyamah, and one that speaks to your desires as a human being, what you hope for and reward, Surah Al-Insan, and one that reminds you and warns us all of punishment in Surah Al-Mursalat. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll start with Juz' Al-30. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, shalla la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.